Here with reaction, RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel and, well, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. All right, Kayleigh, let's start with you. Explain what those percentages mean and explain you're in the process of getting these affidavits. You have, for example, you brought a pile of them with you tonight.
That's right. I did, Sean. We keep hearing the drumbeat of where is the evidence? Right here, Sean. 234 pages of sworn affidavits. These are real people, real allegation, signed with notaries who are alleging the following, among other contentions. They are alleging, this is one county, Wayne County, Michigan. They are saying that there was a batch of ballots where 60% had the same signature. They are saying that 35 ballots had no voter record, but they were counted anyway, that 50 ballots were run multiple times through a tabulation machine, that one woman said her son was deceased, but nevertheless somehow voted. These are one of many, many allegations in one county, in a county no less, where our poll watchers were in many cases threatened with racial harassment. They were pushed out of the way, and Democrat challengers were handing out documents how to distract GOP challengers. These are real, and anyone who cares about transparency and the integrity of the system should want this to pursue to the discovery phase.
You know, I would imagine, Ronna McDaniel, if this was the Democrats and the margins were this thin, and you had this many people, you know, a sworn affidavit, well, you do that, and are you going to get 240 people willing to risk the charge of perjury to sign an affidavit and say that I saw something I didn't see? That's a stretch for me. Then you add to that the voting laws about partisan observers can be there for the entire vote count. And we know in many states that didn't happen. I'm trying to wrap my head around how do you remedy this to the point where anybody is going to believe any results that this has any integrity or that people can have confidence in. And then you compare it to states like Florida and Ohio, two swing states. You got to call those races, you know, 8:30 or 9 in Florida, for example.
Yeah, I mean, this is where you saw Politico put out a poll that 70% of Republicans don't have faith in the results of this election right now. And this is why. It's been rigged from the beginning, rigged from the laws that were being passed in the name of COVID to create a porous election, rigged in the sense that they kicked Republicans out of poll watching and observing. Why do you do that if you have nothing to hide? And now you have a media that's rigging it again by saying, we're not going to even listen to these stories. We're not even going to validate the 11,000 incident reports that we have, the 500 affidavits we have across these states, people testifying under oath how they were disenfranchised from this problem. That's the problem. And the other thing is, it is stealing. When you validate a vote that shouldn't be in, you are stealing from a voter that voted legally. So when you see these people in Detroit saying, we saw batches of votes that were invalidated, they had the wrong name, they didn't live there, they weren't a resident, they were deceased, and then you put them back in the pile of valid votes, which is what some of these affidavits maintain, that is stealing. You are stealing from people who are voting legally. And the media, right now, by refusing to report on this, is stealing our faith in the election process. Tell the story. Talk about the people who are being disenfranchised. People across this country deserve to have election integrity, faith in our election system, and believe that there is election integrity. And that's why the RNC is going to pursue this to the very end. We can never let this happen again.
You said 11,000 incident reports. Explain that.
11,000. So 11,000 people have come forward and said, or incidents of they were at a poll site and these things. So we vet them. We get statements from them, and then we put it in front of the attorneys, and then we get affidavits. It is a long process. And remember, just as Ryan said, the canvasses aren't even done right now. So during the canvass process in Detroit alone, we are coming across absentee ballots that were cast that have no address, that don't correlate with a precinct. So these are things that we're discovering the more we go. We don't even have all the information. The data teams haven't been able to go in and analyze the software. That's why these subpoenas are so important. So it is a long process, and people need to be patient. And the media keeps saying, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Because they're not giving us time to show it. But even the evidence we're putting forward, they're deciding, oh, we're not going to report it, or we're going to break away from press conferences. And we don't want to hear from these 500 people who have signed affidavits talking about what they saw with this election.
Isn't it a lot of it, Kayleigh, when you get down to it, if all of a sudden we'd never done this before, where you're going to have people that didn't even solicit a ballot, they're being mail ballots, okay, are we checking the rolls? I understand, for example, in the state of Georgia, that there's a case building there where, for example, there had been a lawsuit, Georgia Democratic Party, the Democratic National Senatorial Committee and Congressional Committee, and they came to an agreement, and the agreement would allow, they have one database that every day of voters' signature is checked by. But then they had in Georgia, if you requested an absentee ballot, that as long as the application signature matched the signature of the person that voted, that would be okay, when the whole purpose would be what's the one on file, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly right. And then you have states like Pennsylvania where they just threw away signature verification altogether. These are key methods we use to make sure the people voting are actually the people who are deserving of the enfranchisement of that ballot. Here in Michigan, again, one county, 234 pages of affidavits. In this case, there are multiple eyewitnesses who said we went to the poll books to go find the voter. We observed them go to the poll books, not find the voter, and enter in a new entry with the birth date of January 1st, 1900. Tell me how that works. Integrity in the system.
That's a very happy old
matters.
person. Look, I think
that is a very happy old person.
Yeah, but Ronna, at the end of the day, when this gets to be a court challenge, they're going to look at the law. For example, one of the reasons I think the case in Pennsylvania is very strong, the pending case before the Supreme Court, is because now they're going to say, well, okay, constitutionally, we know state legislators, they're the ones that set up the rules for their state. Okay, that means that a governor or a secretary of state can't unilaterally decide, well, we're going to accept ballots 3 days beyond what the normal due date is without changing the law. Then it's going to be, okay, I would think you'd have a pretty good case if the law says partisan observers can observe and you could prove systematically they weren't allowed to observe at all. That would be a violation of the law as it is written and as the Constitution establishes that state legislators set up. Isn't that the best arguments you guys have?
I agree, and these poll watchers and observers being kicked out of that process, we need to know what happened in those rooms when they were gone. It's really hard to go look at the ballots because we weren't in there. We don't know what happened to those ballots when these people were removed and unable to look at this. So that is an election integrity issue. It's a violation of the law, and it's going to be up to these courts and these legislators to figure out how we remedy this. But I will say, if you have nothing to hide, why are you kicking our people out of counting facility after counting facility? And in Detroit, it was only the mail ballots that were coming into this Detroit center. So these were all the mail-in ballots. It was an adjudication center. And that is where most of these votes were coming in. And you saw in these affidavits, some of these coming in the middle of the night, not being able to observe. It's a huge problem. It's systematic, and we need to get to the bottom of it.
All right. And Kayleigh, you talked to the president. You both have talked to the president today. Where is the president as it relates to, because I got to imagine this has been a record for any Republican candidate ever running. Up to nearly 72 million people now voted for this president that are very angry tonight, that are hearing from people that are saying, well, I was told I have to stand 100 feet back or 20 feet back, or even, they could have made allowances, social distancing, where, okay, you put the ballot over here, we're opening this ballot, okay, at a distance, put it over there, you can verify it, both sides, partisan observers, law adhered to. But that didn't happen, did it?
No, it didn't happen. And the president wants justice for the 70 million plus forgotten men and women in this country who showed up to vote for him, who deserve to have their allegations heard by a court of law. To Rana's point, you had 687,000 ballots without poll watchers who were able to observe. They were a football field away from observing. To your point, Sean, our Constitution is crystal clear that legislatures determine the time, manner, and place of an election. And then you have a hack Secretary of State and Secretary of State Bookvar in Pennsylvania who has tweeted horrible things about this president, misrepresenting what she would do to ballots to the Supreme Court, only to then be rebuked by Justice Alito. The Constitution matters. These men and women matter. Their voices will be heard.
And for 4 years, we got nothing but the Democrats questioning an election with a phony, lying conspiracy theory coupled with their propagandists in the media mob. They lied to all of us. But we're not allowed to make sure the integrity of the vote. That's an interesting argument on their side. Thank you.